Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Leanne Fleischer, and welcome to the Tiny Talks workshop for Inspector Chat Day. Uh, Today we'll be chatting with our inspectors, or singular, maybe just one. We're not sure, but either way, we have a very qualified, highly intelligent Inspector Mitch with us today. No laughing.
Wow.
Just want to make sure it's okay with you guys. You're being recorded. As you know, these all go into our member portal. Stop making me laugh. All go into our member portal. So we just want to make sure that it's okay with you guys that you're being recorded. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our lovely operations manager, Miss Sherry. And you can take it away now, Sherry. Oh, if you guys have any questions or anything you want to discuss, put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and speak into the camera and let us know your question. Thank you. Okay, Sherry.
Thanks everybody for being here. I just wanted to start off by saying you should have received an email today if you're one of our members, reminding you that as of January 1, we will be adding some items to our NOAA Plus standards again. And something might go away as well. So if you have any ideas or any suggestions, please don't hesitate to call us, email us, or ask here, or give us your suggestions, because we here at NOAA are looking for placement for tiny homes in every area of the US. And with that being said, we are getting a lot of jurisdictions that are requiring the homes be inspected more as a residential home than a tiny home. So we are trying to make it to where we can satisfy them as well as satisfying our members and your buyers. So with that being said, Rich, did you have anything you wanted to go over? And I will look for that list again as that I'm keeping.
Yeah, my early Alzheimer's is kind of out there. So yeah, without my little list or my stickies, I'm lost. So I'm good right now.
Okay.
I have a question there, Sherry. Is there a place that our builders could go and see the proposed changes so that they could either comment on, or they could join us on one of our Thursdays with some comments?
I think Leanne is putting them on to the newsletter this month. They will be on there. That is the only place we have them. They will be as of right now. And
Okay,
they
could
could
we
probably go
send out an
somewhere.
email? Maybe Jordan, we could send out an email blast to all of the members and saying, you know, you can find proposed changes to our NOAA Plus standard in the blog. I guess it's going to be a blog, Leanne, that you're doing.
Builders Corner?
No, is it the Builders Corner, or where are you putting that,
Yeah.
Leanne?
Well, the newsletter, yes. I was going to put it in where I usually put an inspector question. I was going to just put it there. But I mean, I could do a blog.
No, that's perfectly fine. I just think we need to make that announcement, because a lot of people wouldn't just go to that. Does that go out in an email to everyone, or does it just go up on our website?
It goes out in an email.
Okay, well, that'd be good. And the subject line could be proposed changes to the NOAA Plus standard or something. And then people would look at that and say, oh, let's open that up and see what that's all about.
Okay, so far what we have on our list are, we're not going to be requiring the dielectric test any longer. Rich, do you want to explain why we're not going to be requiring that?
Sure. So the dielectric test in itself, we determined that it's actually has a potential to do more harm than good, because you're actually sending voltage back through the system And if a client leaves that test on too long, it will indeed cause damage to the wiring or to the insulation itself. So along with that, and the fact that we are verifying, wiring and having our stage 3 electrical inspection, going through all the wiring, going through all the boxes, looking at the staples, seeing if they're too thick or anything like that. It's more based along the line of an actual residential house inspection at that point, and there's no dielectric test or anything like that required on a residence itself. So that's why we're making that change moving forward.
Anybody have any questions on that, or?
Leanne has her hand raised. Andy does too.
Are you gonna say what you wrote, Andy, or would you like me to read what you wrote?
Yeah, no, I can say I think the reason why residential homes don't require, well, first of all, chassis and metal, like that kind of stuff, but residential homes don't require a dielectric test because they require something more stringent, which is AFCIs, which I am putting in all of our tiny homes because I want them to seem like and be closer to the residential electrical code. I know Tony and I have talked about this too. I don't know why we're not, requiring all tiny homes to have that. I think it's constant protection,
I'm gonna have to say, Andy, I think it's getting there, and it's getting there very, very soon. Just because, like you said, we're trying to, live up to the residential standards, which the authorities have in jurisdiction, any, municipality, that this is what they're looking for. And I think in a meeting, I actually heard of a municipality requiring that the breakers be swapped out to accommodate AFCIs. So in one of the breaker panels. So I think this is going to be a strong conversation on our end, that you may find that wording in some of those changes coming up.
And I think what's
Yep.
what's going to happen is there's going to be a bifurcation of the standards. I think on one side, some builders are going to stay with RVs. They're going to build them like RVs. They're going to use the RV standards. And some builders are going to say, no, I'm building this for full-time habitation. And they're going to lean more in the direction of IRC and National Electric Code with ground rods and arc fault breakers and all of that. So I think that there's going to be that happening out in the tiny house world. I know it's happening in Colorado here because they're actually writing standards codes for tiny houses that will be implemented July 1st of next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a follow-up to that is I know Texas is in contact with Colorado as well, and they're watching what Colorado's doing now very closely, so that this all may come to fruition quicker than we all can imagine.
Right. The next thing we have is water pressure tests will need to be performed during stage 3 roof plumbing and stage 5 finals. So that means water and electricity.
Yeah, what we're looking at is water and electricity. So during a stage 3, during the roughs, we're looking for the actual pressure test of the drain, waste, and vent system and the water supply system as well. And then at final, which would be our stage 5, we are looking to have the actual electric on and operational, and then the plumbing system as well. Now we know in all circumstances and depending on climate and time of year, that may not be easy, and we may have to take it on an area base. But we're looking to have all of that, basically the whole system operational, as it's going to be intended to use.
Is there any disadvantage to doing on the final not a test with water but a test with air if it's in a cold climate?
Yeah, because they'll have all the fixtures set in place, and that would mean them disconnecting I don't want to have a double test. I think a double test would do more harm than good to the systems itself. I just don't see a benefit to it. Um, to repressurize it with air.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else on that? Okay, the next one is houses should be clear of debris during inspection to allow inspectors to have a full, clear view.
This one gets a little wild because sometimes we have builders, and I get it. It's your build shop, it's your blueprint area, it's your storage area. You're trying to do multiple items and in a small space, and you may not have additional space. But for our inspections, especially at stage two, well, pretty much all of them, we need to be able to clearly see things without moving things around, and or all of or both of us getting distracted. Hey, can you move that piece of foam board there so we can see that 8-foot section of wall. It's common sense from the way I view it, and it's good practice. If you have it, put it this way: if an inspector sees, or anybody, they walk into a house and they see clutter all over the place, they're going to look 10 times harder than they would if they didn't see any of that items in their way, because then there's that elusiveness of are they trying to hide something, and you very well may not be, but it helps us just get in, get out, and then get you underway with the next stage faster.
And I think it protects the builder and NOAA as for being not missing something that may be vital to the inspection at that point in time as well. If you're too distracted and having to move something or asked it to be moved so you can see it, you may just take a quick glance, or you may miss something that we don't want to miss in one of our houses. So
Right.
The next one we have is the bathroom fans set by timer, set to turn on frequently throughout a 24-hour period to help eliminate moisture throughout the home, or may install a humidistat.
So what we're looking at there is in tiny houses, because they're so small and they can, there's the chance to build up humidity within the homes is very high. Just because, if you have two people or just two people and a pet, let's say, or plants in themselves, they tend to bring in a lot of humidity, and if you get any kind of growth on the inside of a house, it'll destroy it within minimal time. So our thought process is, if the bathroom fan is on an automatic, it has to be incorporated into the tiny house. But if we could place it on a 24-hour timer, say to come on, once an hour for a 5-minute duration or something like that, then that'll help clear out the home in little to no time, because you're dealing with a 400 square foot or less structure. So that's one option, and then having a humidistat fan in itself is another option. It basically, it's an all-in-one fan. It's and it self activates under its own humidity. If it senses enough humidity, then it'll activate and exhaust it and go from there.
What about a for real air exchanger? Would that be better
Highly,
actually than a?
yeah, that's probably, out of all those options, that's definitely the best of the three. the first two with the timer and humidistat, those are the least expensive and easiest to implement and actually place. But an air exchanger would be worth its weight, especially if you're going to have this as a uh, full-time dwelling. Because you want the most healthy environment that you could be in.
Does a dehumidifier help in a tiny house?
I would have to say yeah, because it's serving pretty much the same purpose as a exhausting. But just the size and the placement, being able to place it, I don't know how conducive that would be in a tiny house.
Yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, saying, if my fan comes on every hour for 5 minutes, is that taking my air conditioning or my conditioned air out? Where a dehumidifier would just remove the humidity and still leave the heat or the cool in the house.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good option. And maybe we have to explore that a little bit more on our end, is have a discussion with the right folks, and yeah, because it's definitely a worthwhile discussion to have. I don't know if there's any units out there that are more compact or the like that would work without taking up much space, or if any open floor space.
I think there's some mini splits out there that have a dehumidifier function.
Yeah, they do. You're right. I didn't even, until you said that. Yeah, it wasn't dawning on me.
That would be the best option for it. I mean, if you're going to use a mini split, why not pay the little extra to get that?
Hmm.
Just
Yeah, and I've heard that homes that have fireplaces seem to be drier in colder climates. The actual fire, the wood fire itself, will dry out the home.
Yeah, same. I've heard that as well.
Andy?
Yeah, I don't know of any mini splits that don't have a dry function, but it also it uses the air conditioning. So if you're using heat with the mini split, it does it's not the same function as the dry, so that's a little wonky. And I just, in addition to the bath fan or some sort of switch that comes on with humidity, I think we maybe want to require, even if it's not like a full-on energy recovery, or something like that, at least a passive air vent, of some sort popped in there somewhere. So, I mean, I put them in just because our homes are built so tight that running that, you can no matter what fan you put in there, you can hear it working hard when you turn it on, because it can't get enough air if you don't. Like one time I forgot to pop my passive air vent in, and I. But.
Yeah,
So in other words,
right.
So when you turn on your quote unquote bathroom vent, the house is so tight that it can't bring in any outside air, and it seems to be working really hard. And so you have a vent in yours that will bring in some outside air when the fan comes on. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Panasonic makes one. Blauberg, which is Vents US, brand in the US, they make one. And it's just on like a weighted thing. It has a filter cartridge in there, so it's filtering the air as it comes in. And like I've put energy recovery ventilators in and things like that, but I just don't have it. Even the ones from I can't remember but Blauberg and the others, they need more wall. They need like a 8-inch wall or something like that. I end up building a box or something in a corner, and it doesn't. So I offered that if clients want it, but I just warned them that it's going to be, a little different, different looking. But the passive air vent, I think, for most, like especially in South Carolina and Southeast and stuff, I'm not, concerned as much with bringing frigid cold in as maybe, Minimal East. I know they would never
Right.
do it because it's so cold up there.
Yeah. It's like that PA, right, Rich?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. The next thing, and I think Rich mentioned this earlier, the home must be connected to electric to complete the stage 5, at which time GFCIs will be tested and must be on.
Yeah, we're looking to test the smoke detectors, randomly test a receptacle or two, and then, the GFCI properly. It's good practice and it's good safety for all the parties involved.
Okay, washer drain pipe, a 2-inch washer drain pipe.
So washer drain pipes. The current standard allows an 1.5-inch drain for the wash machine, and with the heavy use and livability of a tiny house, or the actual intent of living in a tiny house, the people are tending to install residential type of washer dryer combinations. So with that, the residential washer and dryer, washers, they have a tendency to put out more volume when they cycles than an RV washer. So that's where the 2-inch comes from. Is on the residential side that's required, and that standard over and implementing.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or on that one? Okay.
The only thing I would say is also the S trap on that. We saw some of them that were creating S traps. I might talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So when we drop down with our standpipe and we have our trap, from the point we have our trap that we go horizontal again, that pipe in itself has to be a minimum of 4 inches in length. The reason being is if it's shorter, it has a tendency to make an S trap, which over time S traps, well, A, they're prohibited, but B is they have a tendency to self siphon, which means that the trap in itself will lose its water column, and you'll end up getting the sewer and gas smell back into the house through that empty trap and standpipe.
And so that's twice the size of the pipe. So that would be 4 inches for a 2-inch pipe. For an 1.5-inch pipe, that would be 3 inches. Is
Right.
that correct? Okay.
Yep.
Ice and water shield or equivalent must be used according to its proper installation.
Just throw it on a roof and hope for a good. Is any roof that all roofs, they have to have ice and water shield on the first 3 feet from the eave side into the house. So if you're doing a tiny house, I mean, if you're getting both eaves, you're pretty much only 2+ feet short of doing the whole roof. So I mean, it's up to you, but it would be silly not to do the whole roof. The ice and water shield helps with basically ice and ice buildup and damming. And you may not need ice and water shield in your specific area where you are now. But if that tiny house hits the road at some point, and you go up to a, you know, a colder climate, or you get caught in a cold snap, it happens. It will help save that roof line and keep the ice from building up. Ice and water shield is, in a nutshell, it's required on the entire roof if the roof is less than 412 pitch. If it's greater than 412, then we are looking for it just on the eaves. But again, it goes back to, you know, we'd recommend you cover the whole roof, but we're not going to require it. What else? It's a peel and stick product. It's very easy to install. You know, it's peel and stick. It's like twice the thickness of your heaviest felt that you can purchase.
And the fact that it's peel and stick means that it's adhering to the sheathing directly, and there's no way for any moisture to get up underneath of it through osmosis or melting or whatever. And that's why it functions so well. I have a question on that for anybody out there that's, we're not the experts on this, but when you're doing a roof, when we're doing these tiny houses, we usually don't have any kind of an overhang because we're always fighting that 8'6" maximum width. And so we basically have our siding. We might have a 1x6 or something for a fascia board. What is the ideal way to make sure that we've got that sealed so a driving rain doesn't get up underneath in that eaves there? Do we want to run, for those that are using house wrap, do we run the house wrap all the way up to the sheeting or over the sheeting, or do we take the ice and water shield and lap it over 2 inches? Do we have a drip edge on there that we use the ice and water shield on top of the drip edge? What is a good design for that eave, if anybody could kind of help me out with that one?
The way that we do it, we do zip or integrated. Sometimes we use force field if we can't get a hold of zip, but we use a zip tape on that corner. And then I do metal metal siding almost exclusively. I run that right up to even with the roof line. And then I have a custom drip edge that I have that's 4 inches and 5.5 inches piece of metal that goes over the metal siding. And then I zip tape that drip edge to the sheathing, and then I put my ice and water over that, and then I put my roof on. So I know that's overkill, but again, without any overhangs, and I stand behind my work, and my latest house went to California, and I don't want to go to California to fix it. So
do you have any fascia board on if you're doing a 5-inch piece of metal? Does that act as your fascia also, or do you have?
It is. It's 24 gauge metal, custom color usually, and so that it looks like, and I rivet that to my siding.
Okay. All right. I like that. Anybody else have any design ideas for that area? That brings up a good question. The metal siding does. We're here talking about there is some new standards in fire areas that I forgot what they called it, BOBO or BOLO or something like that, where if you're in certain areas that are considered BOBOs, then all of your exterior has to be fireproof in some way or fire resistant in some way. And that would, they were asking about those yesterday about the in tiny houses, how are they going to meet that requirement. So just thought I'd mention that to everyone. Leanne, you got your hand raised.
Yes, David has a question. If the ice shield is required if using the zip system.
So, yes, it is, and we confirm that by the zip manufacturer. They put out, their install instructions and guidelines, and they actually have that written in to their install instructions that it is indeed required for the roof. Good question.
So using a zip on the walls and the roof, David? Yes. Okay. All right.
He's driving.
Okay. Tempered glass protective film must be used in lofts.
So, this was a pretty good find, I guess. So with tiny houses and lofts, typically your feet, it's almost unavoidable. Your feet or hands or head is at the height window when you're in there. So we feel that it's a logical conclusion that window specifically has to have tempered glazing or the tempered glazing film on the inside. It protects the end user if God forbid they ever had to they ever accidentally did something where the window broke, and to protect them in itself. Is that clear as mud?
So that's all windows in the loft area.
Correct.
Would that be a skylight also if it's in the loft?
It could be, now that you're saying. Well, so skylights,
They're
they
always
come
tempered.
they
Yeah.
come tempered. So you almost got me off
Okay.
my.
Oh, okay. Last one we have is smoke detectors must be hardwired and interconnected, sorry.
So this
Um,
one is this one's a little painful for me. I just want to vent a minute. So I feel the builder's pain on all of this. So smoke detectors required in the sleeping areas, lofts over 35 square feet, and if you have a first floor sleeping area and in a main living space, they all have to be interconnected, hardwired and interconnected. We realize, if you have two lofts and your area, you're gonna have 3 smoke detectors. It sounds obnoxious, but it is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I what am I gonna do? It's for everybody's safety all at the end of the day.
And we're throwing that out there for you guys to comment on too. So if you
Yeah,
feel like that's
absolutely.
overkill or something, please give us some feedback on that one or any of them.
I have a concern about that. A lot of tiny homes get designed with dual lofts, and the main living area is actually underneath a loft. And if you so consider the dual lofts, main living area underneath the loft, and then in between is kitchen, almost always. And so Tony made me put one in what amounted to the kitchen area. And I did it because I make it a general rule not to argue with my inspectors. But I disagree with it because I think it increases the likelihood that it will get tampered with because of nuisance alarms. If you make us put a smoke detector in that area, even though they're, I got them in all the other sleeping areas, and then the main, in this case, the only main living area was underneath the loft, and that's not a good place for a smoke detector, 6 foot, that's not a good. So I think there should be some caveat that if the only other main area, that's full height is where the kitchen is, no smoke detector. Because I mean, in the residential code, that's a rule, no smoke detector in the kitchen, right? So
Right.
what happens when those two things butt up against each other?
Yeah, no, I can concur with that. You even as you're talking, and I'm thinking the design that you proposed through is, maybe it's wise to have the two smoke detectors in the lofts only for that type of design. But yeah, it's definitely something that we can definitely toss around and discuss, or exempt, if the only space left is a kitchen area. Yeah, because you're right. You don't want to have somebody take all them down because it is a nuisance. So yeah,
It'd
valid
probably
point.
make you go deaf after all three of them go off anyway.
I had to put 5 in that particular unit. I had to put
Oh,
5 smoke
wow.
detectors.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
my.
I have
In
a, I have a
300 in like 370 square feet, 5 smoke
Yeah.
detectors.
Yeah, that definitely will be an alarm when they all interconnect and go off. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Exactly.
I have something that I wanted to bring up that maybe needed to be added.
Okay.
It was brought to my attention that these outside um, propane on-demand gas hot water heaters have stamped on the gas hot water heater itself that it needs to be 20 inches from any combustible material. Has anybody run into that? Where you're using, they're basically for camping, and they're, for RVs, they're using these propane RV on-demand hot water heaters, and they have stamped on the outside that must be 20 inches from any combustible material. Does anybody have any feedback on that? Anybody use them that can verify that that is in fact stamped on there, or can we go back and look at somebody that is using them and have them, do a photo or an inspection on it to see if, in fact, that's on there? So I think that's might be something that we need to address if it's not being addressed now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. We can probably look for that to see if we can see it on somebody's inspection file to see what we can find on that.
Yeah, and it depends what they're considering combustible surface too. Because they could not consider combustible being, if there's drywall. Well, I mean, I know interior, but I guess vinyl siding we don't see much of. Metal siding would be non-combustible. Certain woods would be non-combustible. So yeah, it's definitely something we would have to look into a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, and do you see those put on their the garages that they put on the tongue? Did they put these in there and then they ventilate those? Have you seen any of those on demands enclosed in something?
I typically see them standing alone.
Okay.
Yeah, almost exclusively standing alone.
Okay. All right. Just something I wanted to bring up that, maybe we need to take another look at, investigate a little bit further.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any other suggestions that they've heard from their municipalities or jurisdictions that would say we need to see this on tiny homes in order to let them in, or? So we're all good then. Everybody gets a tiny home.
Yay.
I don't know if this is the right moment or not, but I have a question about the thermal break between the subfloor and the chassis, the trailer. Still waiting to hear if I don't know where to get foam that I've never even heard of it, with high enough PCI or PSI. But I think everyone pointed at Rich when they were
Yeah.
on the last time I heard about it. So and you weren't on, so
So yeah, so for thermal brakes, we've really initially we were looking for that XPS foam, but then we did find out, like you're saying, that it's not available everywhere, or it is, but it's special order, which essentially makes it not available everywhere, in our eyes. So we've definitely taken a step back, but not eliminated it, in the respect that we are looking for some type of thermal break. So it could be something as simple as using sill seal, which is basically used in residential construction. Now we know, are these the best applications for this specific purpose? No, but they're a start to what we're looking to ultimately accomplish. So with that said, sill seal is one. Even ice and water shield. That's a good thermal break in itself. Some of the thicker self-adhesive tapes that you would find. I don't want to say zip tape, but as an example, that would be one. And then I know I was just recently in Lowe's, and I know they do make I've seen it was a 1/4 inch foam board or foam. It was like a foldable foam. It came in like a 4 foot length, and it's self accordion folded on itself every foot. So I know they sell that as well, and I was talking to the manager about that, and how distribution works around the country with that. But again, it's an area that utilizes it more than another. So just because I have it doesn't mean you have it down where you're at. So I didn't want
Hardly
to
ever.
bring that. But yeah, another way to accomplish it, and I know it's quite a bit more expensive, is, and it's not everybody's go-to, is you can use an insulated um, sheathing on the floor as well. But the options are out there. It's just we're not specifically relying back on that XPS foam board. Does that
So
help
you
out
think
at
that
all?
do you think the XPS 250 is high enough PSI? Because I mean, when the thing came out, it said something like 200 PSI or something like that.
Yeah. So
And XPS 250 is 25. So
it's supposed to be 60 psi or greater.
yeah, I've
So
never seen that.
yeah. Then it's definitely not in your area. So that's where we're kind of drawing the line
I mean,
back.
I grew up in Michigan and I've never seen that.
Really? Huh. Yeah, because I know out our way, I have it. I can get it. But like you said,
From like a big box store? Like who manufactures that?
oh yeah, you can definitely get it. Yeah, like Dow. I think it's Dow. They manufacture it, and that they can get it from Home Depot. I didn't check Lowe's on that, but yeah, it's out
I
there.
mean, I don't know. I mean, I hate to like argue, but like I've lived all over the country, including Michigan, like, and the highest you can get at a Home Depot or a Lowe's or is Dow's Formular 250.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 25 PSI.
This way, I know when we originally came across this concept, we were on with I don't recall her name, and I don't want to throw her under the bus or anything like that, but we were on with an energy conscious energy person in the tiny house industry, and this was all she was using to use as her thermal break. But I know she was I believe she was on the other side of the country, which would be Washington, maybe Oregon, something like that. But it does exist. Whether it's the Great Unicorn, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my standpoint, I would I would sort of rather use a foam sealer, like a construction adhesive, and use like a much better OSB grade of subfloor, like Advantech or the Legacy, the LP, Legacy product or something like that, that has, I mean, those you can leave out in the weather for a year, and they won't. I mean, that's their warranty, right? So a little bit of condensation, even over the life of the product, as long as the floor is insulated well. I don't like to give up the structural advantage of gluing the subfloor down, personally.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
I think Sharon put a link in the chat if anybody wants to look at it.
Is that correct? It's whitecap.com, high load foam insulation, 60 PSI. Can you see that, Andy?
Yeah, I can. Yep. Yeah. I know it exists, but I would I would challenge anyone to find that at a Home Depot or a Lowe's around the country. But
Now that's 2 inches thick too. I don't know that
Yeah.
we were looking for that thickness.
yeah, we
when
can't give
you
up 2
were
inches,
talking
right?
about it.
So
What you guys can do is actually, if you go to your local box stores or wherever you buy your materials and see, what is comparable, and maybe send that to us so that we have something, because we have members all over the country. So we don't really know what's available one area and one area not. So I would ask that, I mean, if you find it, let us know. If you can't find anything comparable, let us know, because this is how we make our decisions on how we're going to make it work for everyone. And without you guys helping us, we run into blocks sometimes. And we're always willing to listen to our members and to get their ideas and possibility of, maybe doing something different. But
Hey, Andy, when you put, so I understand the point of using, the wanting to do the adhesive to the metal frame. Now, do you also fasten down the sheathing as well to the metal frame?
yeah, I use wood to metal screws.
Right.
We insulate under so most of the cross members get continuous insulation, spray foam, or depending on the trailer manufacturer, sometimes we use fender washers to hold foam board and then lock that into place. But either way, like most of the cross members have continuous foam underneath it. It's the main frame that does not. And again, I'm pretty confident that Advantech can handle it. And especially if my units go to a cold climate, I always highly recommend, beg my end users to put skirting on too as well. So
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
if testing says, if you guys test it all out and I'm wrong about that, I'm willing to do whatever. But a half an inch of that 60 PSI is going to be, we'll have to order in bulk, around here. I'll have to order.
right.
I don't have, I'll have to build a shed to hold it and order it by the truckload. So otherwise, I really don't see what like Silseal does, except not allow me to actually glue down the subfloor.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well,
Because I think that moisture is going to get through any penetration. I mean, I know that you pull up the floor and you see rotten, if you use commodity OSB, I think the moisture is gonna follow that fastener up through sill seal,
yeah, I don't disagree with you there. And I think
it's
that's
gonna rot around the fasteners, so.
Yep. All
I
right.
have one more question. If we're finished with this topic here, HEPFO valves. They are not in the IRC plumbing codes or any of the plumbing codes for residential. They're only in the plumbing codes for RVs. Are we going to have a discussion about allowing HEPFO valves in units that are lived in full time? What are we going to do about the drains for the main thing we liked them for was for the drains for the showers because the drain would not go below the unit and get cold. And so, but in that situation, if it was in a cold climate, obviously you'd have to insulate it or heat tape or something around that trap for the shower. But anyway, just we don't have to talk about it today, but I thought I'd bring it up that HEPA valves are in the RV world, but not in the dwelling, residential code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely something we'll have to read into a little bit more. You're right.
I did want to mention too, though, that we've had a lot of discussions for our insulation R values that we were going to try to require. And we found out there was a lot of places the R21 wasn't available,
Mhm.
which we understand that. I did, however, go from one coast to the other coast, from the top of Michigan down to the tip of Texas, and everywhere did have the R15. So everybody could use the R15, which is required. So I'm curious on how you guys feel about that.
I'm okay with that as long as we can, make 100% certain. So I don't know if there's maybe when we're on, I don't know if the builders would know it off the top of their head without actually looking themselves. But it may be a worthwhile discussion to have for all of us inspectors when we have a build, an inspection for a build, and ask them if they're aware, if it's available in their area. And after a week of discussion, we can with the builders, we can make a determination then.
I mean, there are some of the jurisdictions that's requiring the thicker insulation in order to let them in. So that's where that was going.
Mhm.
But just maybe look in your area again and see what is available. We don't want you spending, your life savings to have to order it or anything like that. That's not what tiny houses are about. And it's not what
Mhm.
NOAA's about, but we do want them to be accepted for whatever reason that jurisdiction is requiring.
On that discussion with Colorado, their insulation values that they're looking at right now. I mean, it's not set in stone, but they're looking at R30 in the floor, R21 in the walls, and R49 in the ceiling. So tiny houses, for the better part, may dramatically change very quickly, whether it's thicker materials or using different materials such as spray foam, or continuous insulation, or a combination of. Who knows? But yeah, all right, we definitely need to take a look at that though, as far as the R15.
Jeremy just stated that R49 is required in the ceiling in his county.
For a tiny house. Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's my area as well. well, in a regular dwelling.
And then Nancy asked, can builders use thermal break tape?
Yeah, I
Um,
was thinking they can screw through it. It's not 2 inches thick.
Unfortunately, there's no such beast yet available, but that may be the $1 million idea right there. So let's just keep that among how many of us are on this. But yeah, there's no specific product yet out like that yet. So who knows? But it's not going to do anything. Andy wants that adhesive, man.
All right, that
I think
is pretty much all we had today, unless Robin has something else.
Nancy just put a link for a thermal break tape on the on there, so maybe it has been invented.
Uh-huh. Copy. Okay.
There you go. Single-sided.
5 psi. That takes
How
us
much is
5
it?
psi. So
Oh,
it's just gonna
okay.
squirt out. It's just gonna squirt out.
Hmm.
It's good grade on the walls.
No, it was another time.
Okay, Robin, I think that ends ours. I'm not sure if you have anything.
I don't want to take up any more time. I just I wanted to share one email and then we can kind of wrap up here. But I had we have a speaker coming on, Philip Bona, who is going to be on our Tiny Talks, I believe. I'm not sure when, but
Tuesday.
When is he going to be on?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, okay. And he is an I believe he's an architect, definitely into the tiny houses and all of that. And let me see if I can find that email that I can share with you. Estimate, plan review, implement, calendar.
Denver has his hand up.
Go ahead and take that question and I'll find this email.
Denver, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could speak to Rich after this is over. If there's a way he could call me on some specific questions I had.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
You have it. I did send you an email today with his questions and his phone number. But if you didn't have time, I was going to tell Denver that I could try to set up a consultation tomorrow, which could be just a phone consultation.
Yeah, I can get on this. That's no problem. I appreciate it, Leanne.
Oh, my pleasure. They're new members, so he did have some things he wanted to chat about.
Yeah, there was just some things that I needed to get in line for next week because we're going to start a floor for a building. We're going to start 2, and I didn't want to miss anything and have them to redo it.
Sure, absolutely. Yep, I understand. No problem. Yeah, give me 2-3 minutes after this ends, and I'll give you a call.
All right, that'll work. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. This was a letter that I forwarded to Rich from, and basically it says, I got your email address from the ASTM Colorado Tech meeting. He's an architect in San Diego, and he's doing research on the ASTM E626, which is a tiny house subcommittee that ASTM has recently formed. And he's looking for good examples and case studies about current global, national, and regional tiny home marketplace. If you represent tiny home or a container home manufacturer, would you be willing to share some updates, images, and materials about your dwelling unit product? Do you have any unique approaches to chassis versus foundation solutions? And where do you see the marketplace in 2030? I mean, obviously, that's a crystal ball. And do you have any ideas about code compliance? But I had sent an email, this one here that it talked about, this one was in Durham, North Carolina, which basically was a foundation plan similar to a manufactured home or mobile home with piers and straps and augers and things like that. But then I sent him this right here that says most designs are a 2x5 or 2x6 tube steel main runner with 2x steel cross members, and outside the main runners there's either an L angle or outriggers of 2x3 steel. And we talked about the insulation, the thermal bridging and trapping of moisture in that one. And then I sent him these 2 samples right here. But if any of you guys have any assistance that we can help with this guy with his questions, I just wanted to mention that I'd like to answer him before our Tuesday meeting. And if any of you are interested in getting involved in that discussion, it's going to be next Tuesday. That would be he's a great guy, good architect, and involved with the tiny house industry and influential in the tech meetings there in Colorado. So just wanted to throw that out as a possibility. Email me directly or contact us in some way. With that, I'll turn it. Denver, you have your hand up?
No, that must have been an accident. Sorry.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to turn it over to Land to kind of wrap it up.
All right, guys. Well, that was a really good interactive discussion. Thanks everybody for joining us. Just want to let you guys know tonight's the last night until next Monday, where we'll have another builder discussing, chatting with us and taking us on a tour of their shop. And that would be Cody Wood with Woodland Ridge Tiny Home Crafter. Okay, I'm not saying that right. It's a long name.
That's right.
Anyway.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
Yes, you are.
Woodland Ridge, right?
You're right. Yes.
All right, so join us Monday for our next Tiny Talk, and hope you guys have a wonderful Friday and a fabulous weekend. If there's no more questions, I'm gonna let you guys go for the evening. We will see you Monday. Have a good Friday. Thanks everybody.
Bye,
for
guys.
All right.
Bye, all.